Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into Pure of Jaw's wildly viral satirical skit to unpack the chaotic, hilarious, and honestly deeply layered arguments between the teacher and the media characters. Now, if you've actually seen this skit, you already know it's a total wild ride. But beneath all that rapid-fire comedy lies some seriously razor-sharp social commentary. We're going to break down exactly what these characters represent and the real-world debates they're highlighting.
But right before we jump in, let's just ground ourselves with this definition of satire. It's absolutely crucial to remember that everything we're about to discuss is framed strictly through the lens of characters in a comedy sketch making exaggerated arguments. We aren't here to take sides on the political or social issues they bring up. Rather, our goal is to examine how this skit brilliantly uses irony and exaggeration to, well, hold a mirror up to the systemic flaws in today's society and media landscape.
All right, so here's our roadmap for cutting through the comedy today. We'll be looking at the opening clash, the FIR and hospital controversy, the sold media satire, real issues versus Pakistan, and finally, the true meaning of patriotism.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Teacher versus Media, the opening clash.
Right out of the gate, the tension is just palpable. The media character, an aggressive anchor named Kanchana, comes in incredibly hot. She's accusing the teacher of this massive 2 crore rupee defamation stunt and basically labeling him a violent hypocrite. In stark contrast to that, the teacher character, who's clearly satirizing the famous Khan Sir, just remains seated. He offers these incredibly calm, albeit highly sarcastic rebuttals. He defends his actions and then immediately flips the script to question the media's own integrity.
So get this, the core of this opening legal dispute actually revolves around a firing incident. The media immediately frames it as an attempt to murder and a severe Arms Act violation. But the teacher character rationalizes firing a weapon into the air to disperse an unruly mob outside his institute as mere survival instinct. He makes this point that crowds don't have faces you can negotiate with. And this is just classic satire, right? It exaggerates the tension between strict, black and white legal definitions and the absurd, practical justifications people use for their personal defense.
Moving right along to Section 2, the FIR and hospital controversy, the philanthropy debate.
Then things get kind of ridiculous. The skit takes us to a segment where the media tries to do this massive expose on the teacher's charitable hospital. In the big, shocking scandal, an ultrasound was advertised for 21 rupees, but a patient is being asked to pay 250 rupees instead. The media character acts as if this is literally the crime of the century, attempting to expose the whole hospital as a complete fake PR stunt over a mere 250 rupee fee.
I mean, talk about a contrast, right? This brilliantly illustrates the skit's juxtaposition. The anchor is manufacturing this absolute outrage, shouting that 250 rupees is a massive scam against the poor. But the teacher fires back by calmly pointing out that the media's own cameraman is casually holding an 80,000 rupee iPhone. It's a really stark look at a wealthy media elite crying foul over a highly subsidized medical bill just to generate a sensational headline.
But the skit pushes the envelope even further. The Kanchana character, desperate to win the argument by any means necessary, introduces this shockingly absurd, totally satirical argument against affordable healthcare. She actually asks, "Are cheap hospitals harming the country?"
The dark comedy of her logic here is just wild, honestly. She literally argues that when poor people can't afford healthcare, they pass away, which acts as natural population control. Therefore, in her twisted logic, the teacher's cheap hospital is actually ruining the country by keeping people alive. It's hilariously absurd for sure, but it so sharply satirizes the media's ability to twist objectively good, philanthropic deeds into destructive narratives just to rack up views.
Which brings us to Section 3, the sold media satire, ethics and spin.
So the anchor accuses the teacher of spreading fake stories about turning down a massive 107 crore rupee buyout offer for his coaching institute. The teacher casually steps in and corrects the factual contention, stating the real offer he rejected was 17 crores. He then humorously adds that, if he had met this particular media anchor beforehand, he might not have rejected the money because she taught him that absolutely everything, even a person's own conscience, has a price.
He's basically saying, hey, for the right price, sensationalist media would sell absolutely anything. He mocks their alleged lack of morals, and the skit immediately pays off this joke by having the anchor character break into a satirical breaking news segment. She cheerfully announces that getting chemotherapy actually has great benefits because going bald saves you money on shampoo and conditioner.
It's super dark, obviously, but it's such a biting commentary on how financial incentives can entirely distort truth in broadcasting.
And the semantic gymnastics here, absolutely hilarious. The skit further pokes fun at media spin when the teacher compares the media's value in society to the falling value of the Indian rupee. The anchor immediately snaps back with a classic spin tactic, insisting that no, the rupee isn't actually falling, but rather the US dollar is just rising. It perfectly captures the kind of linguistic gymnastics we sometimes see in news debates to avoid admitting a negative reality.
All right, moving into Section 4, Real Issues versus Pakistan, the deflection tactic.
This is where things get really real. The crucial point here is that the teacher character finally loses his cool and passionately lists off these severe, macro-level national issues. He demands to know why the media isn't talking about the dropping press freedom index or tragic student suicides due to exam paper leaks, the ongoing crisis in Manipur, or even rampant food adulteration. He argues these are the real stories and they are completely ignored in favor of sensationalist attacks on individuals like himself. And how does the media character respond to this incredibly heavy list of domestic crises? With the ultimate deflection tactic, of course. Every single time the teacher brings up inflation, unemployment, or education, the anchor instantly deflects by comparing India's situation to Pakistan's struggles, basically screaming that at least things are better here than they are over there. But the teacher character just expertly dismantles this whataboutism. He states that aiming for the lowest common denominator simply halts real national progress. Pointing at a neighbor's struggles doesn't fix your own roof, right? He challenges the media to compare the nation to advanced economies, places like Germany or Japan, if they truly want to measure growth and hold the system accountable.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the true meaning of patriotism, the resolution.
The whole skit kind of culminates in this brilliant contrast between two very different types of nationalism. First, you have performative patriotism, which he describes as only praising the country, turning a blind eye to all its faults, and just wearing a patriot tag to show off. He contrasts this heavily with true patriotism, framing the act of questioning the country's flaws not as an attack, but as a much higher, constructive form of love for one's nation. This thought really anchors the entire message of the satire. The teacher directly reminds the media character, and by extension the audience, of the press's fundamental democratic duty. It's a surprisingly poignant moment that cuts right through all the earlier comedy, stating clearly that highlighting what is broken in order to fix it is actually the ultimate act of loyalty to the country.
It all wraps up by clearly defining the respective moral obligations, or dharma, of both professions. The teacher declares his dharma is to educate, stating he would literally grab a cot and teach kids in the street if he lost everything he had. He then defines the media's dharma, to tell the unvarnished truth and raise difficult questions. He leaves the anchor and us, as the viewer, to judge who is actually fulfilling their vital role in society.
So after unpacking this intense comedic clash, it leaves us with a pretty heavy question to ponder about our own media consumption. Are we just being distracted by sensationalism, fake outrage, and endless deflection on a daily basis?
Or are we actually demanding enough truth from the very institutions whose duty is to protect the public interest? You know, comedy is often the best vehicle for truth, and I really hope this explainer helps you look at everyday media debates with a much sharper, more analytical eye. Thanks so much for joining me today. Keep questioning and keep learning.